What if I told you that faith isn't about having all the answers? It's about trusting even when life feels completely shattered. As a widow, I know the pain of waking up every day to a reality I never chose. The empty space at the table, the quiet nights, and the weight of making decisions alone. It's overwhelming, it's exhausting, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense. How can we trust God when we're so hurt? How can we trust God when He took our spouse away? When we are mad at God? When we feel abandoned and when we don't understand? What does faith look like then? Faith means trusting before we can see the bigger picture, knowing that clarity often comes only in hindsight. Right now, you may feel lost in your grief, questioning why this happened or struggling with loneliness. But faith isn't about understanding. It's about holding on, even when we don't see the full picture yet. You may feel like you're drowning in responsibilities, bills piling up, endless decisions to make alone. The silence of an empty house pressing in. Maybe it's fixing something in the house that your husband used to take care of, managing finances that feel overwhelming, or sitting at the dinner table without his presence. The weight of grief mixes with the demands of everyday life, pulling you in every direction. And it's easy to let these burdens consume you. When the difficulties in your life feel as if they are closing in on you, break free by spending quality time with God. I know you may not see Him right now, and it might feel impossible to talk to Him when your heart is heavy with grief. You may be wondering, how could God take my spouse away? Or simply aching for the chance to have them back. Maybe you sit in silence, unsure of what to say, or you find yourself asking, God, where are you in all of this? That's okay. You may feel abandoned in your grief, but God's plan is greater than what you can see now. He is working behind the scenes, preparing something new for you, even in your sorrow. You can say, Lord, I don't understand, but I need you. Help me see you in my pain. Even when you feel abandoned, He is listening, working, and moving in ways you cannot yet see. You need to remember who He is in all His power and glory. Think about Ruth, a widow who lost everything: her husband, her home, her security. She could have given up in despair, but instead she trusted in God's plan. Even when she couldn't see the outcome, He was preparing something greater for her. He provided for her through Boaz, redeeming her story and placing her in the lineage of Jesus. If God could take a grieving widow like Ruth and weave her pain into His divine plan, imagine what He can do for you. Humbly bring your prayers and petitions to Him. God hears our prayers and is working behind the scenes. When you shift your focus to the light of His presence, your struggles begin to shrink in comparison. Remember, the same God who turned Ruth's sorrow into joy is at work in your life, orchestrating something greater than you can imagine. The Bible says in Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This reminds us that God is constant, never changing, and always present, even in our hardest moments. The God who led His people through the wilderness, is the same God who walks with you through your grief. In the Bible, Paul talks about faith as a shield, something that protects us from the enemy's attacks. And as widows, we face many of those attacks. Fear of the future, doubts about whether we can do this alone, regret over what we should have said or done. But faith is what blocks those arrows, reminding us that God is still with us, even in the pain. This is the kind of faith that carries us through grief. Not a faith that denies the pain, but a faith that chooses to rejoice in the Lord, even in the midst of suffering. God is your strength. He makes your feet like the feet of a deer, giving you the ability to keep moving forward, even when the path feels steep and uncertain. And that's why faith matters. It's not about ignoring the pain, but about trusting that God is holding us through it. Just as He restored Ruth's life after her deep loss and provided her with a future she never imagined, He is doing the same for you. Your grief is not the end of your story. It is a chapter in the greater plan God is unfolding. He sees every tear. He knows the weight of every sleepless night. And He's not done writing your story. If this message speaks to you, I invite you to join our community of widows who are walking this journey together. You don't have to do this alone. Comment below, share this with a widow who needs encouragement, and let's keep trusting, one step at a time. God isn't finished with you yet.